take it away.
Yeah, okay, yes. I'm going to present on tourism visitor management strategy for the Chobe Riverfront in the Chobe National Park, Botswana. So, oh, okay. Now,
Just
John,
click
I'm
on,
not able to move the screen.
just click on the screen. That
Okay,
should
the
work.
screen
Oh, there's the arrow down there.
is.
Yep.
Oh, okay, okay, full. Okay, can we start again? Or should I
Ah,
continue?
it's just
Okay.
internal, so you can continue.
Okay. So the first of all, I would just like to give a brief background of
Mm-hmm.
the Botswana tourism, which is our tourism is much popular for wildlife and safari destination.
Mm-hmm.
And tourism is the second contributor to Botswana's economy.
Wow.
So after the diamonds, it's tourism. So the government has put so much effort in developing this industry, mainly because the diamonds are not forever. And
Diamonds are
more
not forever. That's good.
the diamonds are not forever because these are they are not a renewable resource.
Right.
So they finish. So at some point, like in 2015, it's expected some of the mines are going to close. So we need to come up with different strategies of economic development.
Mm-hmm.
So many of the visits are in the Chobe National Park, and there has been more concerns that the park is exceeding its limits of acceptable change,
Mm.
and especially the Chobe Riverfront, with the level of activities that it is having, they are impacting on both the industry and the environment. That is from one of our tourism researchers, Mbayua 2015. And they say there's a likelihood that tourism areas may become degraded due to high numbers of visitors. So our wildlife is much seen as a capital asset to realize the economic growth, and this may reduce the quality of the tourism experience. Now let's go to the Chobe National Park, where my study is. So the Chobe National Park is located in the northern part of the region. Here it is, and it covers about 10,590 kilometers squared, which is
Mm. Wow.
equivalent to 6,580 miles. And this area is so much popular for game viewing, like we are seeing here, and photographic tourism.
Mm.
I am focusing much more on the riverfront, which is congested. Where is it in the Chobe National Park? It is a 17 kilometer strip from the Sidudu gate up to the Muchenje Mabele. So this strip of 17 kilometers, it's one that is being congested and hosts about 60% of the tourists in the Chobe National Park.
Wow.
So apart from this stretch, we do have some other parts that the tourism can expand to, which are not so much visited, which haven't been marketed very well, like the riverfront. So research shows that a number of tourism that Botswana has received from 2011 to 2019, it has actually doubled. In 2011 with 196 or 97,000, and in 2019 with 420,000 recorded by the Department of Wildlife and National Parks. And this within these numbers, 60% visit the Chobe Riverfront. You can imagine what it means to the Chobe Riverfront if all these numbers in a year they visit the Chobe Riverfront.
Can you tell me
And
what is in the riverfront that makes it so popular?
oh yeah, it's been made popular by the river, which is the Chobe River.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of animals, they do go down the river to go and drink water, and that becomes a very nice and beautiful spotting for the animal viewing.
So on the other
And
side of
they
the
are
river is outside of the park?
This river is shared by two countries, which is Namibia and Botswana.
Oh, it's
So
outside the
there is the
country.
Botswana side and the Namibia side, yes. And in Namibia side, it's not the park.
It's
It's
not a
just
park.
a normal land. Yes, it's not a
Oh,
protected area.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. Mhm. So I looked at the literature review and I looked at the wildlife tourism. What are the researchers saying about the wildlife-based tourism? So the United Nations World Tourism Organization defines this as a tourism that refers to observation interaction with local animals and plant life in the natural heritage. And Botswana is mainly a wildlife-based, and a lot of developments do happen around the peripheries of the protected area management, which is in the Kasane area. So, and wildlife infrastructure, tourism infrastructure, the lodges, they are more safari lodges are concentrated in the popular adjacent to the park. So, and most part of the nature tourism visiting Botswana in this area are attracted by the wildlife, wild animals that roam freely. And according to Mbayua, they are not displayed in zoos. This is just free movement in these corridors to the water points. So the Chobe River, according to Ladanov and Muswele and Miswate, they say this Chobe River is mostly attractive part of the country and it is marketed excessively. And with increased wildlife activities, somehow it has transformed or pushed the Chobe National Riverfront to the verge of the mass tourism, especially during the peak season. That is according to Mbayua, Muswete, and others. And vehicle congestion impacts on tourism expectation and satisfaction level. I also went in to look at the visitor models. What are they saying about the visitor models? That and then the definition also from Zanella and Calcet for the visitor management is defined as a set of managerial techniques and tools used by private public bodies of tourism. So I went into this because some of what I'm going to solutions that I'm going to take, it's one of the visitor management techniques. And I looked at the visitor capacity and limits of acceptable change. And okay, I know I have actually been like the visitor carrying capacity has been something that I know. Remember, I'm from the old school. So now with the new school, now I have actually learned from the best. Limits of acceptable change is the new word for me, and I've actually mastered it this time. So the research related to the visitor capacity has just documented many impacts on tourism, recreational, on parks, resources, and quality of visitor experience. For example, the park's visitors may trample fragile swells and vegetation and disturb wildlife, and so the number of visitors increase and parks may become overcrowded. I also looked at the threefold park and tourism management framework. What does the research say about it? And it's the research and practice in the field of parks and outdoor recreation has evolved over time to include this threefold park and tourism management, which is a comprehensive approach that recognizes the three frameworks of concerns, which are the resources, the experience, and the management in the tourism. I looked at the tourism and visitor management planning processes. What are those processes? What does it entail? And these are the processes with multiple steps before the best decisions are reached. So this process is mostly explicit and traceable when management frameworks such as limit of acceptable change is being implemented. I looked at the management and monitoring strategies, and these are the management principle frameworks and processes that are the building blocks for proactive and adaptive management of visitation and protected areas. And with different protected areas, they find themselves with management frameworks which are more feasible and may develop management model appropriate for their own context. And this, in this case, I have actually used the limit of acceptable change. Then I'll go into the strategy, which is the draft strategy that I have developed for the Chobe Riverfront. This strategy uses sustainable tourism development guidelines, management practices, and is also based on sustainability practices. It adopts the holistic approach. Yes, it adopts the holistic approach, which addresses all the elements necessary to communicate the outstanding visitor experience. It also uses the threefold park and tourism management framework, which is more comprehensive approach to recognizing the resources, experience, and management. It uses the frameworks such as limits of acceptable change. It also includes the broad strategies and more specific action practices and monitoring tools for the department are responsible for this. What were the first steps that I did for this strategy? First of all, on the 25th of June, I consulted with the Department of actually, with the help of the Department of Wildlife and National Park, we convened a stakeholder meeting in Chobe, in Kasane. This after giving them the idea of what I'm trying to do, because generally there have been some strategies that the visitor management strategies that they have come with in the past that hasn't helped. So we convened this meeting on the 25th of June with the Department of Wildlife and National Park, the Department of Tourism, the Department of National Museum and Monuments, and the Chobe Enclave Community Trust. This is a product of the CBNRM, if you're familiar with the community-based natural resource management. We met with the NGOs, which is Caracal and Save Wildlife, and also the Botswana Tourism Organization was present, which is a marketing entity to the tourist products in Botswana.
That's government, national government, the tourism organization.
It's a parastatal. We can say it's a parastatal, but it's a lot of funding it gets from the government.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. So the objective of this is sustaining vegetation, visitor experience, and reducing congestion of the boat traffic and vehicle traffic, and also come up with the management to come up with remedy options for this situation. And the meeting set the following strategic action to manage the Chobe River congestion and spread tourism to the other parts of the national park. First, we looked at the vehicle access, because the vehicle access in the Chobe National Park, which is going through to the Chobe Riverfront, is only one access. This access was mainly done to in the efforts to relieve or to manage the visits and the congestion into the riverfront. But this didn't work. The number of visitors has increased this year, and the congestion of the Chobe Riverfront has been also very growing, and with number of the visitors increasing and the activities in the Chobe Riverfront increasing. So the one-way route into the Chobe National Park from the Sududu Island, from the Sududu Gate, which is the principal point of the entry, has been implemented before to manage congestion, but it didn't work. Instead, it actually looked like it encouraged the vehicle congestion. So we did agree in this meeting that as a draft strategy that entry will be permitted via the river access route for limited number of lodges, which are along the Chobe Riverfront, which included the Chobe Safari, Chobe Marina, and the Crest Mwana. This route is only permitted for entry with exit through the Sidudu to include formal registration. And number 2 was all of the vehicle that will be required to register and enter through Sidudu Gate after entry vehicles shall have the option to utilize, they should have the option to utilize the River Road or the Sidudu Valley Road to begin their game drive instead of taking the normal route that is Sidudu into the riverfront. And all vehicles, inclusive of government, private or commercial, they have to engage 4x4 gear prior to entry to minimize the road damages, because that has been very evident in the park that the roads are being damaged by vehicles which will be stuck in the sand. What are the monitoring techniques, and what did we recommend can be the monitoring? We recommended that the Department of Wildlife and National Parks should ensure both scheduled and random monitoring patrols are undertaken daily to identify non-compliant users and activities, because it has been seen that a lot of activities that happen in the park, there isn't enough patrolling, and there are a lot of routes that the game drivers will be taking quickly into the park so that they can go and view or take their guests to where the animal is. Most of them, they do use the Rogers and communicate between themselves that, oh, I have spotted a lion here. So every car will be rushing to that and won't go into the route that has been given to them. So those vehicles that have been identified as being non-compliant will be required to leave the park for the remainder of the day of the offense, and the records of the offenses should be kept with the repeat offenses facing their penalties in line with relevant legislation. And DWNP will also ensure that clear guidance is provided to all operators, guides, and private users of the park usage regulation through clear signages and entry points, and through regular engagement with the industry stakeholders. And as part of the ongoing and required monitoring activities for the Department of Wildlife and National Park, it will establish initially as a trial process a digital vehicle monitoring system to track all vehicles entering the Chobe National Park and utilizing the Chobe River front. And this is this will be done if the resources are permitting, like money and the government will, to buy this tracking system. We also have the water-based activities in the Okavango River, in the Chobe River front, and these activities are mainly through the boat to view the animals while you are in the river. We can see some of the examples of this. They have gone right into the edge of the shoreline to just go closer to these elephants. And here also you see they have, just like in the shorelines, and these are actually some of the unpermitted activities to be on the shoreline. You have to be a little bit like 50 meters from the shoreline. So we have come up with this the strategy that the boundaries of Sidudu Island are to be respected, with no boat crossing over the island, or access through the island central channel is permitted under any circumstances and at any time. So this boat, as they are going through the Chobe, through the river, there is this Sidudu Island just in the middle of the river. So a lot of time they do circumnavigate the Sidudu Island. But this was a way, one of the strategies that was used prior to be able to manage the congestion of the boat. But in the process, it even encouraged and became part of increasing the boat congestion along the Sidudu Island. So this is why we are coming up with the boundaries, and also that we don't have to cross the Sidudu Island. So a no-wake zone will be enforced within 50 meters of the river shoreline. Boat entry into any permitting bay or water bay is to be idle only to minimize disturbance of wildlife and the land erosion. All boats will be limited to the maximum speed of 15 kilometers per an hour. So this, in the previous strategy, it hasn't been, there was nothing in the maximum speed. No, actually it was 30 kilometers per an hour in the water. And it has been seen that this is just too much to be at that speed. And the small and medium boats are permitted to beach and switch off engines along the Chobe River shoreline for purposes of wildlife viewing and photography at minimum distance of 20 meters away from the wildlife. You can see here they are so very close to the wildlife. They will go very close to the wildlife, and they will be in a convoy congested along these wildlife areas. So no boat or more than 2 decks on the deck or standing roof area are permitted in the park. Currently, there are 2 decks that are permitted. The only one that are not permitted currently are the houseboats, but in the Namibia side, they are being permitted. So and
So
boat
where, just a question on the Chobe
passengers are not permitted, right?
On the Chobe River, how much jurisdiction does the
Yes.
park have?
Yeah.
I mean, the river is not part of the
John, I
park, is
can't
it?
hear you.
Is the river part of the park or outside the park? Oh, she's gone. So my question was, how much jurisdiction does the park have on the river?
Okay, I need to share the screen again. Yeah. John?
Uh-huh. You haven't shared it yet. Just hit the button share at the bottom.
I'm trying to share the screen this side. Okay.
On the bottom of the toolbar, there's a button that says share. Just hit it and then choose the screen that you want to share.
Okay. Are we good now? Okay.
Here it comes. There you go. So I was just asking about the river.
Yeah.
And how much of the river is the park, and how much power does the park have to regulate the river? We were doing well.
Okay, I've taken off the video, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Did you hear my question, or?
Yeah, the problem of the third world countries. I can hear you.
Yeah, the question was how much.
No, I didn't hear your question.
The question is how much power does the park have to
You're talking
regulate
about the river?
the Chobe River if it's a border between 2 countries? Well, never mind. Continue.
Hi, John.
Just continue. continue the presentation.
Okay, let me continue and then maybe we, okay, 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 yeah. So we are talking about the river, and this river is shared by Namibia and Botswana, and it has that.
It has what? Hmm.
Some of the boats that are being that are allowed and that, so that with what we in that meeting we came up with that no boats of more than 2 decks will be allowed, or 1 deck and standing roof area are permitted in that, although currently what is allowed is the 2 decks are still allowed, and only what is not allowed is the houseboats, but they are allowed in the Namibia waters.
Okay.
With the boat station, which don't have specific guidance on operational protocols of the site, is very unclear, and they are concerned relating to staff movements, boat servicing and refueling, as well as security of the boats, with potential threats from individual crews. Because there are no guidelines, there are not clear guidelines on this boat station, because some of them have been built by the community trust, some have been built by the private boat companies, and so they are not clear. We have asked for a clear operation guidelines to be developed, agreed, and signed between the jetty operators and the Department of of this size to ensure compliance with operating throughout the Chobe National Park, there are archaeological sites which haven't been used or marketed for the other to be included in the tourism product of the Chobe.
I've lost my connection. Not even there now. Oh, here she comes. Recording here.
I don't know.
Anyway, you're talking about the
Okay, so and
archaeological
then
sites.
I think where did you stop not hearing me? Because I kept on continuing.
Start over with the slide. Actually, I don't hear you now.
So
Oh, she dropped off. I think it's her internet connection. A little bit more.
yeah, let's just try to push, because there's just a few that has left slides. Okay, I was saying
Uh-huh.
we do. I was saying, out of all this Chobe riverfront, there are some of the other sites in the Chobe National Park that hasn't been utilized, like the archaeological sites. And then we looked at them and say, this can be able to relieve the Chobe riverfront from a lot of visitation and activities. So we suggested in the strategy that the Department of National Museum and Monuments should continue maintaining the register and the location, the description to the extent and the significance. And then lies with the Department of Wildlife and National Parks and to adhere, which will adhere to the strategy by managing and preserving the integrity of these sites. So DWNP, which is the wildlife, they will have to work with the Botswana Tourism Organization, the tour operators, the Department of Museum to promote the archaeological heritage of the Chobe National Park and facilitate managed usage of the sites. Where access to the sites is restricted, the Department of Wildlife will have to create and access the routes and clear any overgrowing vegetation from the sites and immediate surrounding in consultation with the Department of National Museum to ensure the sites are not impacted. In conclusion, the strategy has used the sustainable tourism development guidelines and management practices. It adopts holistic approach where we have all the departments and all the government, private sector, NGOs to address all elements necessary to communicate and deliver outstanding experience, visitor experience. And the strategy has identified measures to address the internal Chobe National Park drivers with an additional work, while the additional work will be required by all the stakeholders to address those concerns that are external to the Chobe National Park. This strategy, the first step was to just open communication. This is just the draft that we came with it in a very short period of time. It was just to open communication, develop that trust and foster partnership with different stakeholders. And this will be shared with the Department of Wildlife and National Parks to do more on it and do more consultation with the wider group of stakeholders and involve partners so that they can take it further and discuss it because a lot was on internal issues or the internal elements of the Chobe River of the Chobe National Park, and we didn't include the external part. So they still need more to get the external interiors into this strategy. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
So this is the last slide, the one that says archaeological sites, or do you have another one?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, am I looking at? No, I am looking at your shared. This is your last slide?
The archaeological sites.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. It sounded like you were reading conclusions, but I didn't see the conclusions. Okay, so that's the last one.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, I'm going to turn my,
Yes.
you can stop sharing, so that'll reduce the internet requirement.
I can stop sharing. Yeah.
And then maybe we can put
The
my video
bandwidth.
back on and see if,
Yeah, I've stopped sharing.
and I'll share some thoughts that I have written down here. So I did give some introductory comments to all students in TJs, like on how to give feedback.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I will
Okay,
just,
I can hear you now.
alrighty. I mean, I'll talk and it's being recorded. So if you can't hear me, then you can hear me on the recording. Is that okay? Can you hear that? Probably not. But anyway, so I think it's
Yeah.
an important
Yeah.
evolution that you've taken from,
Yeah, I'll hear you on the recording.
yeah. from carrying capacity to limits of acceptable change. And that is an important step that you've taken in your own professional understanding. And I like how you have focused your paper on just a 17-kilometer strip of the riverfront. I would recommend that you perhaps give a better problem definition, the problem that you want to overcome, and the particular indicators, even if they're informal, of the problems of too many boats and too many cars coming into that area. I'm just going to put them in order that I see them. One thing is you might not say deliver experiences. If you remember, we talked about in the course, experiences are something that are created in people's minds. And all we can do is create the conditions for those experiences. So apparently you're saying that, or you're implying that people's experiences are starting to be damaged because of congestion. It would be interesting, I think, in this paper to point out which exact problems are hurting people's experience as part of your introduction. I think one of them you said is, when one person sees a hyena, everybody goes over there. And I don't know if it scares the wildlife, but it certainly makes it less pleasant and less authentic for wildlife viewers to have so many cars probably popping up in their photographs, among other problems, noise pollution and other things. You mentioned the threefold park and tourism
and
management.
the soil erosion.
Okay, yeah, the erosion that might contribute to their experience as well, as it may also just be an environmental damage that doesn't influence their experience, but probably does. So the threefold park and tourism management framework, which I hadn't heard of before, but I see you cited Manning. I'd like to know how you actually intend to use that. All you mentioned is it refers to resources, experiences, and management, and that was the three-part, but the rest of the framework you didn't share. So it'd be interesting to know how you plan on using that. There is quite a bit written.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry? Anyway, I'll continue.
I can't hear you. Do you mind to switch off the video and see if we can have the language? Yeah,
Alrighty.
okay.
There is a lot written in the literature about spreading out tourism or concentrating it into a particular location, oftentimes called a sacrifice zone, areas that are typically hardened. You didn't refer specifically to that literature, but it is out there. I can't give you off the top of my head a citation, at least not yet. But you might, sounds like that's an important part of your strategy. Another question I have, and you don't have to try to answer it here, because again, this is being recorded, but is that I wonder to the degree that the number of rooms in the lodges is a limiting factor called a use limit, or should be a use limit for the number of visitors, or do you have a lot of visitors there that don't even stay at the lodges, in which case you can't use the number of rooms as a control? Or is there way too many perhaps rooms available? So that's another consideration. Now, when we had talked last week, I had the understanding that part of your paper was
I can't hear you.
That's okay. You don't have to hear me now. I'm recording. Just say that in the chat.
No, I don't.
Hopefully you can see the question, the points in the chat. So right now I'm just talking about lodges and number of rooms. And oh yes, when we talked last week, I had the understanding you were going to, as part of your paper, come up with the social process that you were going to recommend going through with stakeholders. I see you had a meeting, but in this meeting, you came up with many management actions, which is very late in the process. I mean, that's like almost the final product. So I don't see much social process. Sounds like you've done it already in that one meeting. And most of your paper was just talking about management actions. So, and matter of fact, to the point where you were mixing monitoring and management practices. For example, on the monitoring slide, you talked about people who are violating, getting off of their routes, they get kicked out of the park. That's a management action. That's not even monitoring. So it wasn't really clear what the indicators are that you're using or the thresholds. You talked about wanting to use limits of acceptable change, but I don't see what the limits are that you're going to be using or the desired conditions. Another important part of limits of acceptable change, which I went over in one of the lectures, was the process for dealing with objectives that are in conflict between different users. Now, it would seem like in this particular case, you probably have conflicts between the tourism industry and the managers, because the tourism industry keeps wanting to bring more and more people in, and the managers want to control that. So how is that conflict managed? And that's an important part of more of a holistic process, because it recognizes that the different stakeholders have their own personal values, their own subjective understanding of how much damage, right? So holistic doesn't just mean bringing all the stakeholders together. It means recognizing that you have to sometimes use social processes, non-scientific processes to come up with what's acceptable. And then, of course, that acceptable limit can change over time. Yeah, on the boat slide, many management practices, nothing about the social process or the indicators. You didn't really talk much about sustainability. Like, how are we going to reach certain level of sustainability? What are again, the indicators? I see you're gone now, but I'm going to continue recording here on my comments. Another one of your strategies of the many that you talked about, like only having double or deck or single deck boats and no houseboats, which are all management strategies, was to distribute people out of the area and use other less exploited parts of the park. Now, sometimes that is a good strategy. It's not clear, though, in this case, why people who would go to riverfront to watch animals would want to go to archaeological sites farther away in other parts of the park. It seems like people who would go to archaeological sites are a different segment of the visiting audience. And doesn't sound like right now that's a segment that you have or have much of in Chobe National Park. So it's hard to, again, to distribute people to different parts if you're offering them a whole different classes of attractions or experiences. Step was just to open. So yeah, you had mentioned that the first meeting was just to open up communication, which would sound like the first step in a social process. But you have very advanced recommendations for management practices. So it really sounds like you did a lot in that meeting. And maybe you don't even need to talk about the social process because you sound like potentially you're done with it. I'm not sure in the paper. Well, there I went through. I know you only heard some of these comments. I see that you're connected again. If I were to take a step backward, I would make as general comments. I offered quite a few specific comments. It's important to be able to see the course and how the course work is reflected in your paper and in your presentation. I didn't really see too many citations from the course. You said you're using a holistic approach, but what you meant by that was bringing different stakeholders together, which is important. But remember the ladder of citizen participation. You can still bring many stakeholders together and not share any power with them. So how would you recommend a process that perhaps shares more power with the different sectors to come away with solutions that might have a longer ability to survive, a lot more sustainable into the future because more people support them? You talked about using limits of acceptable change, which we talked about a little bit in the course, but I didn't really see you use limits of acceptable change in your presentation. Yeah, and you talked about the threefold park and tourism management framework, but I didn't see you using that framework either. I don't even actually know what it is, to be honest. So it'd be good to see the citation. I see you cited Manning 2011, but you had no references. I'm sure you will in the paper, so that's not a big deal. So in conclusion, I'd like to see more of the framework, more of how will you propose modifying the social process that's been there in place for I don't know how many years. Um, and certainly it seems that the accelerated number of tourists has outpaced the social process, the decision-making process of the past, and requires a new decision-making process to handle the influx of visitors and the pressures that they're creating. So how would you propose modifying that decision-making process to allow Chobina, or at least the riverfront, to reach some element of sustainability? And what would the indicators of sustainability be? You mentioned at the beginning that you're using sustainability management guidelines. You didn't mention any of them, at least I didn't recognize them in the presentation. So hopefully you'll be more explicit as how you will integrate the principles and the sustainability management guidelines, as well as the desired conditions or limits of acceptable change in the riverfront. And once again, you need to justify further whether you really can spread out the current kind of visitors who are wildlife watchers and photographers and have them move out to other archaeological sites, which I'm guessing are probably much lower accessibility than Riverfront has. So anyway, there's some thoughts, and I would certainly invite you to send me any counter thoughts or suggestions that you have. Obviously, we having a little trouble doing the back and forth here, but originally we were never planning live presentations anyway, so we've already done a little bit more than the original idea. With that, I don't know if you want to, I see that you're muted if you want to unmute and say something. Otherwise, I'm just going to end the recording, post this to Moodle, and also encourage your classmates to comment as soon as possible, offering complementary ideas to my own. I see you just turned your microphone on.
Yeah, I will look at the your recommendation. I've heard some bit about that. I have talked about some of the frameworks like LAC, but I haven't you haven't seen them.
Right.
I haven't used them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, okay. I'll try to put that into the presentation, but in my paper, that is very clear on how the LAC has worked and how I have used the LAC
Oh,
and
okay.
or up with the limits.
Mm.
And yes, about some of the sustainability principles. I don't, but I think those are clear in my paper on how I have used those principles. It's only that for presenting it, you have to do a very little time. But I'll try to put them more into my presentation, if
Sure.
or put more the meat into the paper.
Sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can only go on the presentation, so I haven't seen anything else, but
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay.
Well, let me
Okay.
know if
Okay.
you need anything else in the next couple
Yeah.
days. More than
Okay.
happy to respond.
I'll let you know. I'll look at the your comments in the presentation and then I'll address them.
Yep, I'm gonna download this and upload it as soon as possible, but I know it's pretty late there right now, so you
Yeah,
probably
it's
won't
already late
you
from
won't
our
see it
side.
today probably anyway.
I'll see tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, well,
Okay.
happy President Day, and maybe we'll
Thank you
talk
so much.
tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll talk